Today, we're diving into an epic story. It's a journey that stretches from the very first clay tablets all the way to the cloud. We're going to uncover the amazing work of the Guardians of Memory, the people on an unending mission to save our collective human story.
So, let's just start with this huge question, right? How do we stop our history from literally disappearing? I mean, think about it. Every book, every photo, every single file on your computer is in a constant fight against time and decay. And this isn't just about hoarding old stuff. It's way bigger than that. It's about making sure the people who come after us actually have a past they can learn from.
Okay, so to get into this, we first have to understand the mission. What does it actually mean to preserve something? You know, it's a word we throw around a lot, but for archivists and librarians, it has a really specific, super important meaning. All right, here's something most people mix up. Preservation and conservation. They sound similar, but they're totally different things. Think of it this way. Preservation is the big picture strategy. It's like being the architect of a super secure museum. You control the temperature, the humidity, you have a plan for fires or floods. You're protecting the whole collection. Now, conservation? That's like being the surgeon. It's the delicate, hands-on work on a single, damaged item, trying to pull it back from the brink.
And you know, this whole mission, it's not new, not at all. It's as old as writing itself. The second we started carving things on tablets, we started worrying, how do we make this last? From ancient Egyptian scribes to medieval monks, this drive to make sure our ideas outlive us, well, it's just fundamentally human, isn't it?
For a long, long time, this quest for permanence was all about using stuff that lasts. Stone, vellum, you name it. But then, an invention came along that changed everything. It promised to bring knowledge to the masses, but it was hiding a dark secret, a built-in self-destruct button. This is where our story takes a really dramatic turn, with the arrival of modern paper. Our hero with a fatal flaw.
So, the whole crisis really started to bubble up in the 1950s. A researcher, William Barrow, makes this absolutely horrifying discovery. He realizes that the paper used in most modern books is highly acidic. It was literally eating itself from the inside out. They called it a slow fire, and it was quietly consuming our libraries. Then, bam, 1966. A real disaster hits. The Great Flood of Florence was this massive wake-up call that showed the world just how fragile all this stuff really was. By the 80s, major universities were confirming it. The problem was enormous.
And then came the number that just sent shockwaves through the entire library world. 33%. Just let that sink in. Imagine you walk into a huge library, right? And you realize that 1 out of every 3 books on those shelves is so brittle that just turning a page could shatter it into pieces. That was the reality. Our history was literally crumbling into dust.
Okay, so right when this brittle book crisis is at its absolute peak, a new hero swoops in, the digital age. And it looked like the perfect solution, right? The ultimate answer to all our problems. But, and this is a huge but, this solution came with its own set of problems, ones that were way, way more sneaky.
I mean, the promise was just incredible. You could make a perfect copy of anything. And not just one, but endless perfect copies. Suddenly a book, a song, a picture, it was free from its decaying physical body. It could live forever in the digital world. It really felt like we had solved the preservation problem for good.
But here's the crazy, mind-bending paradox of our modern age. The reality of digital is the exact opposite of that promise. It's wild, but a 500-year-old book printed on good paper is in many ways more stable and more likely to survive than a file you saved last week. Digital stuff, it's in a state of constant, invisible decay.
So instead of acidic paper, we're now fighting a whole new lineup of villains. That hard drive you trust with all your photos, it's not meant to last forever. It will fail. That file format you used for a school paper 5 years ago, it might be totally unreadable in another 5. And the software, the computer you need to even open those old files, poof, gone. It's like trying to build a library on top of technological quicksand, where the ground is constantly shifting underneath.
So, faced with this invisible enemy, how do the modern Guardians of Memory even begin to fight back? Well, they had to invent a completely new playbook. They've shifted from being physical repair experts to becoming really complex digital guardians.
Okay, let's look at their main strategies. First up, you've got migration. This is pretty simple. It's like taking all your old photos out of a shoebox that's falling apart and putting them into a brand new acid-free one. Then there's emulation. This one's super cool. It's like building a perfect replica of an old Nintendo inside your modern PC so you can play your favorite classic video games. Next is encapsulation.
This is like taking an object, putting it in a time capsule, and including a detailed instruction manual. And finally, the bedrock for all of this is bit-level preservation. This is just about making perfect, bit-for-bit copies to make sure not a single 1 or 0 gets lost along the way.
Now, you can't just do all this randomly. You need a master plan, and that's where something called OAIS comes in. The best way to think about OAIS is as the architectural blueprint for a digital Noah's Ark. It's this globally accepted standard that tells you exactly how to build a digital archive that people can actually trust, one that's designed from the ground up to keep things safe and usable for a very long time.
Okay, so if OAS is the blueprint for the whole building, then premise is the detailed label on every single item inside. It's what we call preservation metadata, which is really just a fancy way of saying data about your data. Think of it like a nutrition label for your file. It answers all the key questions. What is this thing? What program made it? When was it last checked for errors? Without that label, a digital file is just a meaningless jumble of bits to anyone trying to look at it in the future.
But of course, the story doesn't just stop there. Just when it feels like archivists are finally getting a grip on this whole digital decay thing, a new, massive global challenge pops up, and this one is forcing them to rethink everything again.
So here's the thing. Preserving our history takes a ton of energy, especially in the digital world, with these giant, power-guzzling data centers running 24/7. So the new frontier, the next big challenge, is sustainability. And you're seeing places like the New York Public Library totally leading the charge. They're redesigning their buildings, putting in super efficient climate control, switching to LED lights, anything to cut down on energy. The goal now is to make sure the act of saving our collections is environmentally and financially sustainable for the long haul.
And that really brings us right up to today. We've watched this story unfold from fighting crumbling paper to battling bit rot on a hard drive, and now to figuring out how to shrink a carbon footprint. This constant need to adapt, that's really the core of the whole story. So it leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What's the next challenge for the guardians of our memory?
When you look at it all, you realize preservation isn't some problem you just solve and walk away from. It's a never-ending, constantly changing mission. It's kind of like a relay race against time, where each generation has to successfully pass our collective story on to the next, using whatever tools and technology they have.
Hey, if you found this explainer helpful, inspiring, entertaining, and informative, please share, give it a like, and hit that subscribe button. Watch for the next upload. Thank you so much.